So, when we look at the world today, what do we see? I like to name the spiritual situation at this dawning of the 21st century with two questions. The first is, are we destroying the earth as we know it? Is that what our species is doing at this time? A year or so ago, I met with a very renowned scientist at Stanford University, and he said to me, well, you know, we are the first species that can choose not to go extinct. But of course, we're not so choosing. It's an amazing statement. I think that names the agenda for the 21st century. We are a species, the first species, that can choose not to go extinct. But the path we're on is very definitely a path of extinction, no question about it. And this is why the slogan of this center here, sustainability, is such an important and powerful spiritual word in our time. I believe that the word sustainability, is the 21st century word for justice. Because what is just holds, what is just endures, and what is unjust falls apart and does not hold. And what is sustainable is what holds, what endures. And this is the biblical teaching, where the Jews believed that the universe sat on two pillars, justice and righteousness, or internalized justice. And if justice was compromised, the whole earth was off kilter. It was not sustainable. So that the Psalms say, the Jewish scriptures say, the poor and the orphan and the widow are not treated well. The whole earth is off kilter. It's not sustainable. No society is sustainable when injustice reigns. How is it possible that a species could choose to go extinct? Maybe they don't like life. Maybe they're cynical. Maybe they prefer necrophilia to biophilia, love of death to love of life. Maybe their religions are not teaching them the preciousness of life and how to recover it when it's lost, how to breathe and find spirit in something as simple as breath instead of 1,300 canon laws and 99 commandments. Maybe we've replaced morality or pseudo-morality for spirituality. Maybe it's greed. Maybe it's ignorance in the Eastern sense of ignoring what is obvious. Ignoring what is obvious. That we are part of a whole. That we are related to all the other creatures. And we ignore them at our peril. Maybe it's lack of elders. Maybe the elders are too busy making money or playing on golf courses or grabbing for power than to make themselves available to the young, vulnerable to the young, learning the new languages of the young, and assisting the young to create new forms of education, new forms of worship, new forms of celebrating, new forms of bringing together the wisdom of all the world's spiritual traditions and not just hiding in one's own tribe and say, we've got all the answers. Tribes are nice, but tribalism is killing us. Especially now that the world has shrunk. The second question I want to put forward tonight to raise, I think, the issues of 21st century spirituality is this. Are we honoring the souls of our young people? Are we honoring the souls of our young people? I was with a very wise Irish woman today, and she was telling me how sad it is that so many young people in Ireland today are committing suicide, unprecedented rates. Well, they're doing it in America too, in many ways, subtle and not subtle. Shooting each other, going to jail, doing drugs. I have a friend who was a priest on an Indian reservation in America for many years. He himself was Native American. And he told me years ago, he said, my number one job is burying kids who commit suicide at 6th grade. That'd be around 13 years of age, 12, 13. Number one job. But he does more of that than anything else. It's like the indigenous people are the canaries in the mine. That what they're going through, what they've taken into their souls of the toxic of a civilization that has lost the very concept of soul, that they were showing what the results are. The addictions that our culture is involved in, and that Ireland, and obviously there's a plus to the advances that Ireland has made in employment and income and all that, but there are also many shadows that go with it. Shadows of addiction. And of course, we humans are capable of becoming addicted to anything. The more wonderful it is, the more we can get addicted. And this is why all spiritual practices have something to do with learning to let go. Learning to let go. Learning to find one's center and not be taken over by the possibilities of addiction. And so I do want to talk this evening about education and about how we're reaching our young and not, and how we might do a much better job of it. Because I don't think there's such a thing as spirituality, real spirituality, that is not inspiring the young. I think it's one of the tests of authentic spirituality. And indeed, that is not inviting the young in their way to lead. To lead. And Jesus said something like that, didn't he? Something about how children know more about the presence of the kingdom and queendom of God than adults do. Is education today part of the solution or part of the problem world over? The Dalai Lama says education is in crisis the world over today. I find that very comforting, actually. It's not just a California problem where I see it daily, but not just an American problem. It's an Irish problem. It's an Australian problem. It's a Chinese problem. It's an African problem. Because our species is in crisis, of course we've got to reinvent education. We are at a new place as a species. And we have to ask what has been left out of education. How much soul is allowed in education? And I propose that to the extent the soul is banished, to that very extent, our young people are falling into the trap of addiction and violence. And we elders have to wake up